This is Sculpey 101, Lesson 6. We're doing hands. So, the first thing to know about hand... Oh, if you haven't done Lessons 1 through 5, you can click over here, go do them. Or if you just want to do a hand, stay right here. Okay, so if you've got if you're making a human, and you've got your head done, or at least blocked in, then you could make your hand the proper proportion by measuring it to about, well, put your own hand up to your face. Now, I have little delicate artist, sensitive baby hands, so mine's maybe a little too small. But most hands go from about the chin to about the brow, middle of the forehead, somewhere around there. So a good way to get started, make sure your proportions are correct, you can just Google hand proportions, print it out at the size you need, and put your clay down and start cutting away. So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing I did was I made a ball of clay. I'm going to end up making essentially a little mitten. So I'm squashing it down. I'm kind of tapering it, so if you look at it from this view, it's thicker here and thinner here, because fingers taper. If you look at a hand, it kind of goes down to a taper. If you don't taper it, you're going to end up with noodle fingers. Nobody wants noodle fingers. I'm sure somebody wants noodle fingers. Okay, so to start the thumb, just cut this little section here. I pull it out. And now I've got a mitten. Okay. Put it on our paper. Okay, a quick note about armature. I tend to be an armature minimalist, especially when it comes to Sculpey. Sculpey is fragile, and it will snap and break if you breathe on it, or sneeze on it, or walk next to it. It's just going to happen. Here's what I've found. If you go crazy putting little armature in every little finger, they're still going to snap, and they're still going to break. Only now you're going to have a twisted armature wire poking out, or the finger is going to snap, and it's going to have all sorts of little crumbles and stuff because it wasn't a clean break. It's way better to just walk by, let your statue snap into pieces. All those little snaps are going to be just crystal flat, clear breaks. A tiny dab of super glue, pop it right back on, good as new. You have an armature wire, and it's going to snap, and it's going to like twist down and crack in weird places, and then you're going to have to be, oh, do I drill the wire out? Do I, it's just a mess. It's not worth it. So, not only that, but you're way more flexible in creating your hands without the armature wire. So, I do armature for the large, the bodies, like an arm, a leg, a torso, a neck, and a head. Just a little ball in the middle of the head. That's really all I do. Okay, so we've got our hand pretty much in there. I'm just going to cut the digits. And you'll, let's see. Usually on the side I end up cutting this a little thinner there. I'll do that for the pinky, because once you start drawing the clay out and rounding it, all these fingers are going to lengthen anyway. So you don't really have to worry about their length at this point. Mostly you're concerned with where they start, where they leave the palm. That's an important part to get at this step. But how long they are, I don't really care at this point. Okay, once you basically got them blocked in, the very first thing you want to do is start pushing your thumb down. The whole hand kind of tends to arc. So if you look at it from, let's look at it from this angle. right? There's an arch there from this thumb knuckle around to the pinky knuckle. So that's the first thing we want to do. Second thing I want to do is put in this pad of flesh that is around the base of the thumb, or the thumb ball as I like to call it. Okay, then I go in with my tool and I start to establish the where the fingers sprout, pull them apart a little bit. Note the arc of the knuckles as well on there. You can kind of draw that out. Also notice that the knuckles are a little ways back from where the fingers actually leave the hand, right? Here's my knuckle, here's the webbing of the finger. So there's a pretty good distance there. You don't want your knuckles to be right at the edge of where the finger leaves the hand. Okay, and so now I'm just kind of gently pinching all around. I'm palpating and slightly twisting, just knocking down those edges from, from the clean cut. It comes out as, an extruded square pretty much. And we don't want square fingers. At the base, you need some tool action to get in there because your fingers won't fit. Let's see. Flip it over and get an idea for where we're at. Ah, yes. This little guy here, if you look at a hand, you've got this line that goes out here before the thumb starts. And so when you start with the mitten, it's not quite right, so got to add that. Using this kind of thicker, rounder part of the tool to get some distance between each of the fingers. Okay, now I'm going to start, before I go any further with details, I need to make sure I have all the volumes blocked into the hand, otherwise I'm going to end up squishing stuff when I add it. So, look at your hand, move it around, notice where the padding is. So, you've got that thumb ball there, which I've already kind of blocked in, and then you've got this other part down here, and then you've kind of got, more or less, you've got this little wedge and then this little wedge which goes down there. So you don't want to use a ton of material on here because you've already got the thickness of the hand in there. It's just enough to give you, let's see, I guess you could call them the landmarks of the hand. So they're like hills and valleys, right? This part, just kind of make a shape that's kind of close to it. And then the index finger gets its own little pad and travels down like that. One of the things that I do a lot to keep the landmarks or the knuckles established is I do a lot of pinching. Go in and I'll pinch around where the knuckle needs to be to make sure that I'm not losing the proportions. Start looking at the the lines. It's awfully convenient to have your own hand right there for reference. So at this point you need to start thinking about what the hand's going to be doing. Is it going to be in a fist? Is it going to be splayed out? Is it going to be, you know, all these different poses? Put your hand in that pose and look at how your flesh moves and folds and wrinkles. Because, I mean, obviously if you're doing a fist, then putting a bunch of detail into the palm is pretty pointless. If you're doing a grip type of thing, that's going to be different than if it's splayed wide open. You don't need to put in all these rolling hills on the palm of your hand. So I think in this case I'm going to be doing a kind of a grabbing thing. Keep needing to go in and reestablish these creases at the base of the fingers to make sure they're round. And then I'm doing just more palpating around the ends to round and smooth and taper them. I usually end up doing this a couple times as I find the appropriate width for each finger. You know, the pinky is a lot thinner than the other fingers, so I tend to squeeze that one out a little further, and then I got to trim it back again. Although maybe not in this case. I may have got it right on the first try. You know what they say, practice makes barely adequate. Okay, once you got the proportions down about right, then it's time to start adding the landmarks, such as knuckles. What I like to do before the knuckles, though, is get the inside of the knuckles. And the reason I do that is because then I've got really good landmarks for bending the fingers where I want them to as I'm posing it. And so I kind of go in with my tool and give it a little V-shaped groove. And depending on how much I want to bend the finger, I'll go in deeper with that. But if the finger's not going to bend at all, then you want to just barely mark it in there. One thing I'm doing is I'm making this groove go maybe about halfway around the circumference of the finger. And as I'm doing that, I'm also pushing the material up and away from the groove to kind of give a more pillowy, soft roundness to the pads of the fingers. I think what I'm going to do is one finger really taut so that you can just see the difference between that and some curved fingers. So it looks like I got my thumb coming out of the hand a little too soon. So I'm going to do my little cut and paste trick again. Just going to cut it off, move it up. And again, super great to do this before you've gone in and done all your detailing. Because obviously if you put a bunch of little wrinkles and folds and fingernails and veins and then you have to cut it and replace it, you're losing a lot of work. I'm doing a kind of a double pinch squeeze thing to get this second knuckle on the thumb locked in. There's this little blob of skin that forms that web, and when you move your hand around it changes shape quite a bit. So I'm trying to think exactly how I want the hand to be right now. Kind of like want to make a pointing finger. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to look at my hand when I do that. And I examine this little blob of tissue there. What is it doing? It's basically attaching the ligaments of the thumb that go up into the hand there. Look, we've got a anatomical model here that shows you there's this stretch of webbing there, and then that blob of whatever it is. Yeah, I don't know if this model is, I assume this model is pretty accurate, but it's a little different than some of the pictures I've seen. Or maybe it's just, it's probably has removed whatever layer those, whatever that stuff is. That's right, folks, you are getting the anatomy lesson you paid for right now. Anyway, the point being that I'm making it curl around from fatty blobby ball of the thumb up over to the side of the hand. Okay, since I know I'm going to curl these fingers around, you can see the Sculpey is already splitting apart because I put those V grooves in it, I pushed it down, I pulled it apart. So it's starting to get to that point where I need it to be. I need to mark the landmarks of where the knuckles are going to be. So I'm basically going to try to flatten out the areas on the top of the finger between the knuckles. That is, wherever your little V is on the inside, the knuckle is on the opposite side of that. And then I start creating the volume of the knuckles by this semi-scooping away from the middle of the finger part up into the knuckle part. And on the thumb, because it's following that arc of the hand, if you'll recall, the thumbnail is pointed out. It's not pointing straight up like the other fingers. Now I'm just going to kind of gently indicate where the bones of the hand are going to lay. Okay, now I'm going to block in the knuckles, these knuckles. To do that, I'm just going to roll a little snake, cut it into 4 blobs. Note the arc. Gonna block in the fingernails. This is another reason I like this tool. I can just take it and roll it from one end to the other, and you've got pretty much an automatic fingernail. Okay, now we're going to start adding some character to the hand. So it's at this point that you have to decide, is this a young person's hand, an old person, male, female, and then get reference for it. So in my case, I'm going to make this an old person's hand, for the simple reason that in the next tutorial we're going to be going over details like wrinkles and skin pores and veins and stuff like that, so this will be a good canvas to put all that stuff on. So I got all this reference, and it's super helpful. So, you know, I've got one finger that's extended pretty straight, and I can see some straight fingers there and there. I've got some that are curled around. So there's a curled one. So that gives me a good idea of how much the knuckle would protrude, how much the skin folds around it, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start heading in that direction now. I love old hands so much. They just have so much character, and I don't know, wrinkles are cool. I can't wait till my hands are old like that. I got really excited the other day because I thought I had my first liver spot. See? Right there. But then I remembered that's just a burn from a hot glue gun. Someday. I really like on this hand how you can see this wrinkle of skin that's being pulled taut at the upper knuckle here, and then just kind of sags down around that second knuckle. That's pretty cool. I'm going to try to recreate that. Oh, I want to show you this other thing. This is a project I've kind of been dinking around with on and off for years. Let's see. Oh, look at that. It's got a date on it right there. 2008 was the last time I touched it, I think. But it's... Right, the idea is eventually it's going to look like this concept art I did. Right, so it's going to have this cool little wizard guy with a lance writing on it. But it's an experiment I was trying where I made the bottom, the underneath part, painted it red, you know, with blue veins and everything, and then I started using regular Super Sculpey to coat it, and then put all the skin pores and wrinkles and details and stuff on it. But what I found out is that unless the Sculpey is like a very even thickness over the surface, that whole coloring thing is not going to work out how I hoped it would. But someday I might finish it. We'll see. And actually, I feel like I'm starting to go into what I'm going to be covering in the next lesson, which is about details and wrinkles and veins and all that kind of stuff. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Tune in next time, and we'll finish this hand. We'll get back to the head, and we'll talk about wrinkles and stuff on that, and other cool detail stuff. So we'll see you next time. Next time. Promise.